No, I think that like probably we laid the footwork like all day yesterday and the day before, just kind of visiting. You know what I mean? And so I think that, like I told you, I really don't got a problem with you guys asking like, Craig, people think you're a dick, or the WCB's an elitist club, or this or that. Like the hard questions, I think are good as long as not even like because I don't think that we're perfect. You know what I mean? I think we fuck a lot of stuff up. So it's like it doesn't matter, and I don't want to be popular. I just want to be like genuine. I think that's probably my biggest goal is to try and just be genuine. You know what I mean?
Our great friends over at Fairy Box have been supporting us on Forging Brains for a while now. Since the time that they have sponsored the show, we have received many great products that I wouldn't have thought about buying, or because I was being a tight ass. But they were sent to me in their subscription box, and now I use those products in my day-to-day practice. Each box is sent bi-monthly, and in those boxes is an array of the top tools and products that have been tested by the greats in our industry. So go to www.fairybox.com and use code BRAINS for 25% off your first month's order. You won't be disappointed, I'll tell you.
All right, welcome everybody to another episode of Forging Brains podcast. I'm your host, Riley Kirkpatrick. Got my co-host, Gavin Cooper. In today's pretty cool episode, we're at the WCB headquarters, the World Championship Blacksmiths. We got Craig with us today, and it's a cool thing to have Craig on again is we've been doing this now for almost 2 years. So it's kind of added up pretty quick, and we've been doing the Mount Rushmore for quite a while, and you have easily been the most common person on people's Mount Rushmore.
That's pretty cool. That's cool. It's cool that think that you didn't just get blown off for this or that. Like you're trying to help people. And sometimes, like yesterday when we had Paul Skaggs here, sometimes people always think that education is going to come like in the form that they want it to come. And then all of a sudden you're like, hey, Paul, just shut up and let everything come to you. You know what I mean? And it's like you're wondering, well, that was mean and that was ugly. But then you're wondering if that wasn't the right thing to do. And I think that's where probably I just always don't have a filter. So when you say things, and I'm not saying I would never say something to somebody that like if I thought, man, they're on the edge, I don't think they like me, I would never tell them the truth. You know what I mean? I would just kind of glaze it over and walk away from them. But people that are my friends, it's sort of like, hey, man, that's stupid. Yeah, and I mean, I hope that my friends are the same way with me. You know what I mean? Like, Craig, you're a dick. And it's like, yeah, that was a dick.
Sugarcoating someone along is not going to necessarily help them out.
Well, I think that's what, and I bet that's why you probably are on most people's Mount Rushmore, is you are a good teacher. You observe us more than probably most people do, and I think like you know our skill sets more than we probably know our skill sets better, or know our skill sets ourselves. And so like, I think you are good at timing and delivery on things. I've watched you interact with multiple people, and you don't interact with each one the same, and you got like, I think you know the message that we need to hear at that time, and not a bunch of other noise going on there. Because it is one of my favorite things to do is watch you like score a shoe or give someone advice, because you're never quick on the cuff, and you never say the thing I think you're gonna say. But you'll see, like, you look at a guy who's playing the same shoe, you'd be like, man, like, and I'm looking at it like, well, the nail hole's here and here. I'm just looking at it as an individual shoe, and I think you're good at seeing it as a picture, a whole picture.
Yeah, it's like the WCB. I mean, not WCB, but it's not about the WCB, but it's about like, it's like Edward Martin. Probably the one thing that was most impressionable to me is that he's like, you have to be a custodian, and it's like, I don't think anybody wants to say, I'm the next Edward Martin, but I sure as hell don't have a problem saying I'm the next custodian. Like, I'm the janitor of our trade. And it's like, because I don't think you can replace somebody like Edward Martin. I think he left a void, and there's lots of people who would try, and they should try. But it's like, to say I'm the custodian, then I feel like Edward Martin hand the torch to me, and you're supposed to be the custodian. You're supposed to be picking up. You're supposed to be like making manicuring, because like every sport, everything that we do, you have like the NBA, and they're like, the NBA is like, they give 18-year-old inner city kids $20 million, and they didn't know what was going to happen at first, but like, what do you think was going to happen? And then we have people in our industry that get a little fame, and then they're like, yeah, I'm a WCB member. And you're like, man, you're kind of a dick too, so you need to back off. You know what I mean? Because, you know what I mean? And those people who are allowed voice for us are like, people are like, yeah, I know you WCB guys, and you're dicks. And I was like, that dude is a dick.
Yeah.
And he's like, and if he was here, I would try, I'm not going to ostracize him, but I'm like, man, you need to fucking like get your shit together because you are sporting our colors, and so like, just because you can make a handmade shoe doesn't mean you get on Facebook and you're like, yeah, we do this and keg shoes are shit. No one thinks keg shoes are shit. No. You know what I mean? But it's like, so it's like the same thing as that NBA. You give that inner city kid $10 million and he goes awry, and everybody's like, see, the NBA is full of thugs and pieces of shit. And you're like, no, you just got to refine it.
Yeah, you know, it's
a little guidance.
Yeah.
Need some guidance.
You need some community, right? Like, you kind of need, like, that's what a lot of people, even back, like, they have the church to be, you know, like, an Amish guy kind of rides the fucking side of what they're supposed to do because he's afraid of the church. And not even afraid of it, but he's like, hey, someone's going to call me out about this.
It's a community, but Amish is about community.
Completely. And that's, I listened to a podcast not that long ago and said that we're kind of losing our sense of community as a whole.
Yes.
Like as a country, you know, people aren't divided. A part of the potlucks, you know, local, like going and helping just local random people for free, not really worried about the money side of things a whole shit ton. Where it's like, that to me is what WCB is a lot. Is like, it's the community to keep me on my toes, like on the righteous path a little bit of like, you don't just get to be a complete asshole all the time because someone's going to call you out about it.
Or if because of your accomplishments. And there's lots of, it's easy to do. We all fall into that. You're like, well, I've done this, this, and this, so I can be a bit brash. Or I can walk to the front of the buffet line. Or I can do this. And you're like, nah, that ain't really how it works. And then, and like, I mean, like, I don't want to turn your listeners off or this or that, but I believe in God. I believe in Jesus Christ, and I believe that you're going to meet your maker, and I believe that morality stems from God. Yeah. Like, do bad shit, and
I just want to be a good person. Like, not be a complete dick.
Yeah, and you want to be that good person, and
works out in the long run.
Yeah. Yeah. Is that so wrong? And I don't think like you're going through it right now, Riley, where you're a father. And I think that, like, the advice I get is, like, don't change who you are. You can't be Mr. Rogers overnight. You're like, well, I've got to be a good example for my... No, being a good person is a good example for your daughter. Not changing who you are so that you make a false fallacy for your daughter. You know what I mean? And, like...
Yeah, you should... Being a good person is not just, like, doing the right thing all the time. It's like
yes.
How you think about things.
Exactly. So... People say cussing is a sin, and I agree. But I also think that probably cussing and blasphemy has changed. Like, the word fuck, when you first said it, was like terrible word. And now it's sort of like it's the best adjective in the whole wide world. And I think it is. I think it can be gross and eerie if you mean it in a sexual content and in the wrong company. But like, if you're like, who the fuck does he think he is? I don't think that's supposed to make people
just
think.
Common vocabulary.
Yeah, that's not supposed to make people feel icky and dumb.
Sailor thing. It's hard too, right? Because like you're gonna have bad apples in every group, and I think it is like there's no way anybody could sit and be like our group is perfect either way. Like, guarantee there's things about, and it's also your group is kind of you're a little bit more like-minded people, but not everybody's going to be the same. But it's like it's going to be a certain type of person that hangs out at a WCB, whereas it's going to be the same type of person that goes and plays softball. You know what I mean? For the company team, they're all going to be the same type of person. But it's like I think that's where the groups have a hard time meshing together sometimes. It's just right away. Like,
okay, well, so like you got someone like that's just Tim Shannon. Tim Shannon, he came in because he's like, people told him through the Vine, they're like, man, if you want to get your AW, he's like, this will speed you up. This will get you in the forge. And it's not like he didn't turn his back on us, and we didn't turn our back on him. He just came in and he accomplished his goals, and then now he comes by every once in a while, but he didn't lose out and we didn't lose out. He was there and he was goal orientated. Now let's take another person, John Harsbarger. We got John. He's like, this is kind of cool. And his background in the farrier industry was limited at best, right? Maybe a guy that shot his uncle's horses or his brother's horses or his mom's horse. You know what I mean? But it was limited. And then he gets into the farrier industry. And then all of a sudden he's like, this is cool. Because I don't care what anybody says. Fabrication is cool. Fabrication is like a purpose-driven life. If you can fabricate, all of a sudden you're like, it doesn't matter if it's a house or just like yesterday when Riley started working on that ribbon. It's like all of a sudden you feel like this is cool. This is and then you feel like you're a part of something.
Yeah. Turning nothing into something.
Yeah. And so like John Harsbarger comes in and he owns the farrier supply and he has to put on a bunch of different hats. But he's like, well, I'm going to do it so that I can see what these guys are about. And then all of a sudden it envelops him. And it's like, I like this. And then all of a sudden, now he's going to be on a team with Conrad Troe and compete in the 2-man at the convention. And and he's not just going to compete. He's been going out to Conrad's, and Conrad's has been going to John's.
Wow.
And they want to give they're not.
That's incredible.
Yeah. And all right. But the reason I'm saying this is because all of a sudden people realize what that community is about. Because it's easy for me to sit here and say, yeah, the Amish are a bunch of religious fucks that like they're incestual and they're just this or that. But then when you go and you hang out for a week with the Amish, you realize this is about a sense of community. This is about like, and the church is everything to them. It's their hospital. The church is their everything. That it's their new building after their house built. And not only that it's this. You have to have a community. Otherwise, if you don't have a community, you're out there just winging it.
When it's crazy too, like kind of a little bit. It's like you around an Amish community, you don't see a bunch of trash around.
You don't see anything
because
bad.
it's theirs. It's their own. Like it's in your own home. You don't walk by trash because you're the guy that's got to pick it up later. And so like, they take care of their own very well because
community is cleanliness though too. It's like we're here for a long time, so let's not just make it into a dump.
Yeah, that was a little rattle. But so you're talking about like how Tim came for a little bit, got his time, and like John's kind of through his season. Whereas I think that was a hard part for me when I first started coming to a WCB. Is like I came in and I'm like, well, there's only one path here. You got to try to get to the top.
Yes.
You got to try to win.
Yes.
And then like now I am not. I am very aware I'm probably never going to be a world champion, and because it's not what I fully want.
Not right now where the pendulum is. You're like, no, that's not what I want to do.
And that's where it comes down. It's like, well, it's just not what I want to do with my time right now. But it doesn't mean I can't come. It doesn't mean I can't enjoy contests. My mindset just has to change. It's like you go through your seasons of life on it, and it's like, but it doesn't mean you can't be a part of it or anymore. Where I think that was like early in my mindset was, if I wasn't...
Ladies and gentlemen, I want to tell you about the fine sponsor, Yukon Forge. If you guys hadn't already heard in a previous episode, John has taken over the Flatland Forge driving hammers business. So now you can get a driving hammer made by Yukon Forge, and it's going to be made the same way that Jim Poor had been making them. So pretty dang sweet. I've got one myself, and it's lasted for many, many years. There's also many other tools that John has been coming up with, like the propane nut, and he makes tongs, hoof knives, everything. Let's go check him out on his website. Use code BRAINS for 10% off. To order those, go to www.yukonforge.com and use code BRAINS. Get you 10% off and try to get yourself a cool hammer. Yukon Forge also has any other kind of tool that you could ever need. He has the propane nut, which makes for ease of tightening your propane regulator on the propane bottles. He's got rounding hammers, clipping hammers, and hoof knives. His hoof knives are some of the sharpest I've ever used, and they last a good long time. So, can't also forget about tongs. He's got lots of tongs as well. So, head over to www.yukonforge.com, use code BRAINS, get yourself some savings, and lets us know that you guys are supporting the show. Thanks. Let's get into it.
If I wasn't trying to win it and be at the top, why were you there at all?
Yeah, and then people relate that to complacency and that you don't give a shit.
Exactly.
And so then you start to relate it to complacency and you don't give a shit. But it's not that, because I think, like I say, Tim came in and like he was like gun ho and at all of them, right? And then he gets his AW, and it's not like people take that as like, now that we're done, and it's like I guess I don't really. All right.
No, it's nice. It's like, yeah, you hit that goal, but it's not. I mean, even riding a bike, it doesn't just stay there and stay fresh and things.
No, it doesn't.
So going back every once in a while is just like, it's another little like catch up and check up that if you can still do this and fine tune the skills again, it's like you gotta sharpen the axe a little bit.
And that's where the combative part comes in, is because people are like, there's people in the trenches that are pushing real hard, and then there's people who aren't in the trenches, and they're like, there's no other knee-jerk reaction but to say that's not where life is at. And we're not saying it is where it's at, but we're saying that this group is working hard at it, and that like there's nothing wrong. There's nothing like, because man, there's people who protect the top and people who protect the bottom. And you like when you start talking and you're like, let's just say winning. They're like, well, there's more to life than winning. And I take that right off the bat as, well, why do you want to protect the bottom? Like, why do you want to make excuses for people who don't want to win? Yeah. And they're like, well, that's kind of elitist. And it's like, is there really, like Andy Frisell says, the ultimate rebellion is personal excellence. And you should personal excellence.
That's it. I think nailed it right there. So it's like people are like, well, it's like not about winning. It's like, no, it's not about winning the whole thing.
Yeah, the whole thing is a big deal.
But you got to win in your head.
Yes. What is winning in your head?
Yeah, but you can't. And like, so okay, that's like winning in my head is not saying like it's okay, I'll stay in the house today. So like that's to me is like what a contest does more than anything, is like, well, I need to get out there and I need to go practice. I can't just say whatever happens at the contest happens. I don't care if I win or lose. It's like, well, no, I can't worry about the total rankings, like, but I have to worry about beating myself still. If you sign up for something or you're gonna say you're gonna do something, it's like that's winning in your head to me. It's like I have to try to be not let my inner bitch keep me on the couch.
Yeah, but like sometimes winning is like a lady comes up to you and says, your little girl came up and she was so sweet and so nice and so considerate, and you're like winning, right?
Oh yeah.
And those are winning. That's winning. You know what? Everybody relates it to, well, he got to stand on the podium because he won the uneven bars. You know what I mean? Or she won the uneven. Yeah, it's like that's not really always winning.
No, and that is one thing that I know that like this community has done for me, and I know it's done for other guys. Like it's taught a lot of us how to be family men.
Yes.
Like it's a pretty cool thing for me to look around the other guys that I have been competing around and come around, like, and most of us have children, and we take family life very serious. It's like it taught us how to manage our lives pretty well.
Oh yeah, yeah, and it's like to see like just a good example is you, Chris Madrid, Bodie, all these people who all of a sudden they've got the little kid on their knee, and it's like it's more about it than just like wondering if they can stomp a mud hole's chest because they're gonna have a better go than that guy over there.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden those people are helping more, but it's to us like yesterday we had talked a bunch about like where's the WCB at? What's the group that you want to have, and what do you want to do that? And it's like, man, oh man, it's just. You can't stop because you have this community. And I think stopping would not be good. Not that Chris, Bodie, we never sit around a table when we have vacation or when we're on the pontoon on the lake. We're never saying, well, how are we going to stop this thing? We're always like, how do we refine this thing? How do we keep it going? How do we change it a little bit? So it's like, but it does take on a life of its own. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. And I'm sure it's hard, too, because I'm sure you get a lot of outside feedback, and I'm sure you want it, but I'm sure some people have a different view of what they think it should be compared to what you guys have the view of.
I think it changed. Yeah, I do. I think there's people, and I don't think I'm not gonna make any pull any punches, but it's like we are about building skill. And if you have skill, I think that you can use the casting material. If you have skill, I think that you can put on one of Austin's pads. I think if you have skill, you can do all those things. And very seldom is it going to look like shit if you have skill.
Yeah.
It's going to go on. It's going to look nice.
Okay.
But if you don't have skill,
here a lot, right? Is that people come in, they're like, well, it's just like Cash is like, well, WC guys don't know anatomy, you know, or like they don't know. Like, they're not shooting the whole horse. They come in with this whole entire thing. It's like, what is your take on that? Of like, if someone coming up learning, we're like, how do you think it's gonna help him as a whole farrier? Do you think it's gonna hinder a guy because he was working on making plane stamps and not knowing all of his ligaments?
well, I tell you right now, it's like, I think that Marcus Appleyard spent a lot of time in my shop, and I think we've made a lot of shoes and we've learned how to forge. But I think that probably where he's probably turned the biggest corner is like on the foot, at the horse.
Come on up
Learning.
in here, Marcus. Come talk with us.
But you know what I'm saying? It's like everybody's like, yeah, those guys are iron bangers. They're this, they're that. Well, I'm telling Marcus, I'm like, Marcus, where the money lies at is shoeing horses good. Doesn't come into forging horses shoes good. It's shoeing horses good. And if you can, like, the best message is be nice to feet. Grow vertical depth. And learn distortion. Learn all that stuff. And so like people are like, well, Craig's this and Craig's that. That's all right. I don't care because that's all dumb shit. There's nothing that we do more than trying to fit feet. And trying to fit feet is knowing anatomy because, and it's like Marcus comes and he's like, we got to do this. And it's like, I'd say that we worry about feet 10 times more. Like I know that he's going to get the forging. The feet is where it's at. Do you agree with that?
Yeah.
And it's like, so everybody that's on the outside is like you have people doing clinics that are like, I hate toe clip Tuesday. And it's like, well, toe clips, like in an argumentative arena where we can debate and have a horse in front of you, I have no problem. I put this offer out there all the time. I'm like, man, you love your ideology? How about you come and we go face to face on a year's worth of shoeing and we let everybody in on it. And everybody's like, well, it wouldn't be quite fair. And your horse would probably, my foot would hold your horse's foot up. So it would be compensatory problems. And then my horse side of the horse would suffer. And I'm like, that's all bullshit. How about we just put your ideology? Because I believe in what I'm doing to where, and let's just say you smoke me. There's times in your life where you're like, man, that shit smoked me. Because Daniel Ark Evanson said it once. He goes, you know what? The reason that I've found that I don't like side clips is, he says, because I suck at side clips. If I just get better at side clips, maybe.
But you think like a person has to be at a certain stage in their life to accept that one way was actually did better than the toe clip or whatever.
Without a doubt. And those are the people with the big egos.
Yeah.
We're getting undressed every time. Like, we're like, all right, we tell Riley, all right, make us a pair of tongs. Be impressive. That and like, yeah, that's hard to do on demand. Like, come on, Riley, show us how it's done. And it's like, and everybody's like, those guys are about big egos. Bullshit. I guarantee you, Stephen Bain is like, I've been with him. He shoes good feet. He has nice feet, and he's a fucking 5-time world champion. And it's not by coincidence. It's dedication. And whenever he screws up, like when you screw up time and time again, you're like, man, I hate it that inside medial quarter is always over on all my horses. Well, you should probably, it's not that horses have shitty feet.
Yeah, you're doing something wrong.
Yeah.
You have to be willing
and
to
that's
accept
humility.
That. Yeah.
And people are like, well, those guys got big egos. Those guys don't got big egos. It's just that you have to drop your pants in front of everybody as soon as you start to admit, like, all right, make a heel. That's nervous because people are like, well, make a heel. And you're like, all right. And then someone says, well, that heel sucks. And you're like, yeah, it does. But you told me to make a heel. And it's like those guys that don't want to even show that. They're like, those guys are iron bangers. They do this. They're just cookie cutter shoeing. What is more cookie cutter shoeing than going to a supply shop, picking up a box of fucking horseshoes, and then they're like, well, all it needs is the heel kicked out. That's anatomy. And then when you're like, And then Billy Crothers says, he goes, man, if you shoe a horse right, people will want it again. Well, then that's why people don't drift out of the little cookie cutter shooters, because they'll expect that again and again.
Yeah,
and it's like,
it's more work.
yeah.
And it's something they can deliver each time, right? They know it's a promise they can deliver, where it's like
Mediocrity is easy to deliver.
I think it's we all get after vets, right? That we're like, hey, these guys all prescribe the same bullshit all the time.
Yes.
And I try to like, okay, take yourselves out and put yourselves in the vet's shoes. You are dealing with multiple farriers all the time.
Yes.
Of multiple different skill sets.
Yes.
You need to try to prescribe something that is gonna get at least this result. I see why they prescribe a lot of those cake shoes, because they're like, it'll at least be this.
Oh yeah, and it's consistent because we're not, and we're dealing, and everybody talks to you, like whether you're, if someone says, hey, I've been divorced twice, you're like, oh, he's fucking philanderer, or you know what I'm saying? It's like all this stuff, but that's how vets look at you. When you show up, they're like, they're actually talking to the last person, and you don't know what that last person was.
At all.
Yeah.
It's hard. I do think that's one thing also, like that it can be taken as an ego maybe, but I don't think as much of an ego as like I'm just okay with knowing where my skill set is and telling you what's a yes and what's a no.
Yeah.
Of like, I can do this and I cannot do this. Like, and I'm pretty aware of it, and so I think that's why that's why my personal feet are usually better, is because I'm like, I come back like, man, I shit the bed. And I'm okay with not making an excuse of why I shit the bed, of like, I just really need to try to get a hold of this before it goes the other way.
Where my bitterness and contempt comes from is just the fact that whenever I meet up with vets, they don't ever ask for the storyline. Like, I've never, in the 42 years I've been shoeing horses, I've never said, what kind of schedule is this horse on? What have you noticed? Does it grow foot? Does it not grow foot? They never ask, and who's better to ask the backstory than the person that's been working on it for the last several years? And then all of a sudden they come out, they're going to clean this horse's sheath, and they're like, I noticed that he's got toe clips on. What's that all about? And they lay that underlying deal on there, and it's like, and so it's like, all I want to do is be part. Everybody's like, well, we have to work as a team. Well, part of a team was be like, hey, you got some information. Let's extract that and see if it can't help us on this project that we got. But most of the time they come in guns a-blazing, and they're like, well, I've noticed that on an x-ray that we have some rotation. Well, all right, so then you start the combative process. Do you have previous x-rays? No. Well, then how long do we know that the distortion or the rotation's been there? Well, we don't. Well, then
Where are we going?
so are we sure that distortion or rotation is the cause of lameness? Because it might have been there for 14 years.
Yeah.
No, it's super hard. And I think there's a lot of there's farriers and vets out there that are a little bit headhunters. That's what they're out there doing. Like, they're trying to stir up some commotion through anything, and it does not help matters whatsoever.
Well, there's money in controversy, just like on TV. Reality TV is not about everybody getting along. They're like, holy cow, the roof was supposed to be a 4.2, and it was it was a different pitch roof, and now we've got it. It was never it went together perfectly. That doesn't sell anything.
If there was a show, a reality show with farriers, it would be like, if he doesn't nail this shoe on right, he loses it all.
Yes, exactly.
The horse will die.
Yes, that's the way it would be.
It would be. No, and these people love. We have farriers and vets in my area. They love doing the same thing. They love creating drama. From nothing. That doesn't really need to be there whatsoever. It is. I think that there's the vets out there that you work with that are they're okay and they're with being with the team. My biggest problem with a lot of vets is it's just bad business. I think that I've learned from other businesses is know your coworker.
Yeah.
Do it if I have a vet that I have to work with and I don't know anything about them, I look them up. I Google their name just right off the bat. It's cause if a business guy's gonna do business with another guy, he's probably gonna look at his LinkedIn account.
Yeah.
And see what the fuck he's about. So it is vets treat us as a whole. Like you said, they're talking to the last guy, where it's you might want to be aware of the current person's skill set and how to use it to the best, or how to keep them and you out of a bad situation where you put them over their head.
Yeah.
Either direction.
Without a doubt. And so think about this. It's like I'll just name drop a bunch, but it's like most of the people that we've talked about and we network with and that we do stuff with and we shoe horses with, their lives have become better. Like Carl Vaya, he's like, I got in the truck with him, and I don't know if I've said this on the previous deal, but I got in the truck with him. He's like, man, shoeing and trimming's a piece of cake. It's fun. He's like, things get better, vertical depth, horses are sound, my life is easy, don't have near as many problems, and I was like, yeah, because the goal was never to make you an alcoholic that got divorced and you just turned into a piece of shit so you would be like me, you know what I mean? And it's like so that never comes into account. Like they never talk about it. Like Bob Pethick, he's a successful person, and a lot of those skill sets, almost all of them, he got from competing and networking with other excellent people.
Oh yeah.
And so, but like, so now you've got the fray, and the fray is what runs everything. The fray, because that's the masses, right? Yeah, and when I say that, like, Facebook is run by the fray, or do you think it's not? Like, do you think that like?
No, I just never thought of it that way, but I because I think it's just very easy to think like, oh, every situation's ran by the top end of the, but it's not.
It's not, and so it's like, well, because like, when you talk about like. The people who get the loudest and the most vocal is like when you start talking about accreditation or licensing. Not that I want licensing, because look at how fucked up our government is. Yeah. But I'm saying, look about accreditation. Accreditation is where people have a starting point. And we have no mandatory accreditation. Yeah. So we have no mandatory starting point. So then so now when you say, hey, we need some accreditation, a lot of people come in, and a lot of people from like, the guy that shoes 3 a week, and that's his hunting money. Yep. That goes in his sock drawer until it's time to go hunting. He becomes very vocal because he's like, well, you ain't gonna take away my fucking hunting money. Yeah. I've been fucking those horses up for 27 years, and that's been paying for my elk hunt. But you do that takes away my. And you're like, why does he get a seat at the table? And it's like, well, because he shoes those horses, and I get that, but I'm just saying. The fray is usually what steers it, because it's those people come out and they're like, hey man, I do a lot of work and I do a lot of good things and I've never been accredited. And I was like, yeah, but do we want to stay at this point for the rest of our lives? Because we're talking about fighting with veterinarians and stuff like this, is because we're sitting here, we're just, and then you hear veterinarians, let's just be a fly on the wall of veterinarians. Like, yeah, you get 6 farriers and you talk about trimming and you'll have 14 different opinions. And you're like, why is that? Because we've never moved on from...
no baseline.
Exactly.
We have zero baseline. I think you're completely right. That's why they have to prescribe some random gimmicky crap. Because they're like, I don't even know if this guy can punch a nail hole. I have no idea what he can do. But if you have at least a baseline, you know, like, well, like you can ask somebody, he's like, you got a driver's license? All right, cool, you can drive this car.
Yes.
I know you can at least know where the turn signals are on the son of a bitch.
Mm-hmm. And people say, well, is that the best thing? And I was like, I've yet to see too many professions that want to give up their accreditation. Like when you talk to veterinarians, you think it would be better if you just did away with school and like had a degree? And they're like, oh yeah, that'd be great. That'd be wonderful. No one says that.
I think it's funny that you know, the guy with his hunting money is even gonna say anything, because it's just not gonna matter in the end.
It's not.
He's still just gonna do it, and it's still like those 3 horses are never gonna get shod by some. You know what I mean? So it's like, but they are the ones that speak up and hold back everybody else for the rest of the.
And it won't matter. It won't matter.
Yeah. Like, guarantee England still has people out there shoeing horses that don't have a license.
Oh yeah, they talk about it. Like in the sticks and stuff. There's people still get shoes and they still nail them on. And you know what? I don't know as if Stephen Bean wants to shoe those horses that are out in the sticks that someone is doing in a horse trailer. Like, yeah, he gets up there in that horse trailer and he shoes that horse all the way around, comes out of the horse trailer. Do people who are striving for excellence really want to get in the trenches and try and be competitive with the people who are doing backwoods, back alley shit?
No. I don't want to do it.
No.
That's the thing. It's like, we do get held back by those people a lot. for some reason, even though in the end they aren't going to be there for you when everything's going shitty to help.
No.
And so it's like, why let them hold them back for things being a little bit better?
Yeah, and they get chippy too. People get a chip on their shoulder, like, yeah, well, this or that, or like, yeah, Craig, your nail line isn't perfect, and it's like, that's perfect because Bob Pethick and Stephen Bean aren't going to criticize that because they know how hard it was to even get to where you showed it in the first place.
Yeah, we were talking about that last night, that it's like a lot of times I think people hold themselves back from posting, and I do think it's like something, and it is like it's a bone to pick with WCB guys of like, we're all after like doing really good, and we all see a lot of mistakes in our work, and so we don't post it. Because we think it's a lot. It's like, it's another bonus. Like, we're afraid of each other, calling each other out, and so it's like, this is me saying like, don't be a dick and call people out. Like, you can criticize somebody. Like, well, that's what messages are for. Two.
Yeah.
Like,
Yes.
Have some fucking common courtesy here.
Oh yeah.
Especially on someone's personal page. Don't be a cocksucker. But if you see a bunch of shitty jobs on the internet, well, that's all you're gonna keep seeing unless other guys start posting. And it's also nice to like, you can't keep the persona that everything's perfect all the fucking time. It can be just good. Like, that's pretty decent for today. So
You're trying. You're doing
guys
it.
don't post about it, and so then now it's like, they're like, oh, those WCB guys all think that they're fucking perfect, and it's like, no, man, we just shoeing everyday fucking horses, but we're trying really hard, and like what we're doing is kind of hard. Like, we're striving for that excellence.
And excellence sometimes is haphazard. Like, I'll do a job, and I think the other 3 feet are nice.
Yeah.
But they didn't look nice. I think I got through the pylons pretty good, but and then one foot, you're like, man, that's sweet from no matter what angle you look at it. So I'll snap a picture and you put it on there. But I've done some stuff like, I made it wasn't too long ago, I made some concave shoes, and I had a piece of slag where I thought that was the center punch mark. So I went ahead and I'll clip it. So I put a clip it, and it was then you look and you're only about an inch away from the lateral toenail. So I was like, but that piece of concave cost $5.
Yeah.
So then I put it on, and I get it on there square, but the clip's not in the right place.
Yeah.
And so then I take a picture, and I was like, and I know because Chris Madrid's like, I ain't never seen Craig pull a shoe off, and like that, I was like, so I knew he would get a kick out of it because like, he didn't pull that off, he charged good money for it. But I'd be honest with you, I couldn't wait till I got it off and she wore it out, and it was an endurance horse. And I was like, I'm glad that won't probably tread. I'm gonna put a new one on there next time. But yeah, it's like but having said all that, I think that like let's just say Shane Carter, Bob Pethick, Grant Moon, you don't just get on their page, and even if stuff I'm like, well, I wouldn't have done it like that, because I think that they're trying to pull the wagon just like everybody else.
Oh yeah. It is one of my favorite things, like talking to Bob. He's so laid back and just like humble about his work, but he is just like a really great farrier, you know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
But he is so humble and realizes that how hard things are, you know? It's like, even this trip here is very, like, we had Paul O'Reilly and Jason Hill. They both shoot very high-end horses.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Those guys carried in zero ego.
Oh my God, they were like, Paul O'Reilly's weekend was made by, he's like, I got to strike for Chris twice.
Yeah.
And he makes more in 2 hours than Chris and I make in a whole week. You know what I mean? And they're doing high-end horses, and he's like, I got to strike for Chris twice. And he was like, oh, but because they got no ego, because it's all about going forward. And when we get here, it's all the undressing. It's like, there's no peer pressure as far as like, do you have $500 cash in your wallet? No one thinks about shit like that.
Yeah, no one thinks about it and cares. Yeah, it's a very like it reminds me of hunting a lot. Like, you go into hunting camp, like the beer in the cooler is the beer in the cooler. Like, all of a sudden everybody's tools are everybody. You know what I mean? It's like, we're just here to try to get things done. But it is funny also that it's like, it's a little bit there, because I guarantee Chris thought it was just as cool to like, yeah, Paul struck for me through these things, and like, Paul shoots some of the fucking best.
Oh yeah,
in the country.
that's what's so cool about going up to Spruce is you see like Ian Spud Allison when we're driving up in the car. Spud's like, that's so and so. Hey, that's so and so. He's like, he's all starstruck because there's some badasses there. Yeah. And then, but we got badasses under the tent. You know what I mean? That he's like, yeah, I shoe the Irish horses and this or that, and they're like, and they did good. Like it is amazing that those guys had 2 horses at the Olympics.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's crazy.
And they're in our shop, and we're talking about like trying to make a better heel cock, and you know what I mean? And they're
zero ego guys just hanging out. It's like it is a very cool thing. Like everything gets shed, and it's just about like focusing on like the individual work, just going forward on it.
And I think that Paul said it best last night. Whenever he goes, you shoe on the road, you better have a lot of friends because you're gonna lose shoes. And you're gonna have messes on your hands. And if you go in there like you're high and mighty and you're a badass, then people are like, well, I don't care if you got a shoe off. But he's like, you gotta have a sense of community.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh, completely. It is a weird thing. Like you're always learning. Like for me, is like even like we forage all day, but then when it shuts down, everybody's sitting here having dinner. It's like I'm very tuned into guys like Paul and what he's saying.
Yeah.
About his business, like
oh yeah,
that's the time to learn that part of it. It's like the same time like you sitting there around with guys and they're talking about how they raise their kids. Like you pay attention to the guy that kind of has fucked up kids and what he's talking about. He did with him. You're like, oh, I'm not gonna do it.
Yeah, exactly.
You're like this guy's kid has really good manners and this is what he's talking about. The activity he's doing.
Yeah.
Like, I think I'm gonna be doing with this guy. It's the same thing. Like when I hear Paul talking about what he does with his clients and what he's doing for these different situations, you're like, well, if I want Paul money, for a horse that I'm shoeing, it's like I'm gonna start doing some of those things he's doing.
Yeah.
Like it's the same thing. Like you watching a guy make a horseshoe, like, well, I fucked my nail holes up. This guy just punched across and his nail holes all came out. Like I think I'm gonna do a little.
Yeah, try a little bit, do a little soul searching.
Yeah, it's something to take it, but it is a whole community deal. Of like each guy's got something. You just gotta be paying attention of.
Yeah.
What you can grab from each person.
And we have like graduating classes too. Like you have people that come in and then like I say, all of a sudden they've got kids and they're the OG. You know what I mean? And then you got a whole new group of people come in. And you have people that you know aren't gonna stay. They're people there that are there to get away from their family. They're there to, and you know those people aren't gonna.
As you called it.
What's that?
The tourist, as Riley kind of called it. He's out to have a good time and experience
exactly.
it.
Doesn't make his early morning go round because he's already hung over from not even making it, and then he's like, and he's embarrassed, and now he's embarrassed. No one really cares, but then he doesn't want to come back because he embarrassed himself. There's all kinds of stuff that happens.
It's funny too because no one does care.
No one does.
No one's even gonna remember.
No.
Like it is such because it's like happy to have you there while you're here, but as you're passing through.
Yes.
Like it is, but that's where like you have these graduating classes, but it is like it's just okay whichever season of life you're in for it. I feel like
and that's why the team events like we're backed all the way down to just one team event now, and that's the World Horseshoeing Classic, but it's because that changes. Everybody cares. Like, I don't really care if Marcus doesn't care, but when Marcus is on my team, Marcus better care. And he better care a lot.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So true.
But the thing is that Marcus, if Marcus has got half a brain in his head, he knows I got skin in the game now because he's like, so now Marcus has got a free ride to get the truth.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But like as Tom Cruise says, you can't handle the truth or whatever, Jack. You know what I mean? A lot of people don't want the truth.
No, they don't. And I think, like, that is one thing. The team event's a completely different beast.
It's a different animal altogether.
And it's if it is a fuck-off deal, you better get that out of the clear with your whole entire team before that everybody's there for a fuck-off deal. You guys are all on a cruise ship. Like, have just on a bachelor trip. Because if the other guys are serious about it, you are not just taking that guy's weekend while you're there. You're robbing him all the practices he did and everything and the time away from his team.
Yeah, and so that it almost goes all the way right back to your marriage and everything. Like I've been on some teams, the AFT teams, where it wasn't that women weren't invited. It's just that, like, what are you going to do with them? Because you're focused. And so what kind of woman wants to just go and sit on a stool and be ignored?
Yeah. It's like Chelsea does like stuff for hospitals. She's like, yeah, I got to go to this work trip. Like, I'm not going to go follow her around and sit in the car and hang out.
Unless there was someone with like a shop and you're like, hey, you live right down the street from Fred. I mean, and
you can connect the trip a little bit. Make something that's like, you do see a lot of guys fuck that up for themselves. They bring the wife along, and it's like, I know if Chelsea brought me along, I think like, yeah, no, it's gonna be cool. We're gonna go to Fort Worth. It's gonna be great. It's like, well, it's only cool, but you better make sure they know like what. Like Chad had this great thing of like, just be up front about what the fuck's gonna happen.
Yes.
Because if you don't, and all of a sudden you get to the end of the day, all they were fed was lies that were about to leave and go have fun all day. It's like,
yeah,
you're very happy and you're probably not going to come back.
And so you would do that. You'd be on the team. Like I was on the team with Bob Pethick, Shane Carter, and Jim Poor. And those guys have big stuff going on in their life.
Yep.
So when the first team practice, we all had our diaries there. And they're like, all right, we're going to be together on the second weekend in June. You know what I mean? And everybody, but it goes back to that old saying, if you want something done, ask a busy person to do it.
Yep.
And so, like, those guys all have big lives. You know what I mean? Like, Jim Poor's got shit going on in his life. Shane Carter's got shit. Shane Carter had all his kids at that time, I think, living in the house. So he had a whole house full of kids and a practice and doing all this stuff. And so did Bob Pethick. You know, Bob Pethick lives in an airplane.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so it's like all these guys had stuff going on, but when they're on a team, no one had any tag-alongs. It was like us four, we're paying attention to each other and we're getting stuff done. Then I've been on teams where everybody's like, all right, it's going to be so good when we go to England because we're going to go in a week early and all our wives are going to go. And you're like, this wasn't really a team. This was some sort of an event that you earned a right to go do, but it wasn't really like, let's go be savage.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's
a distraction almost in a way.
Yeah, and people say, well, that's narcissistic or misogynistic or whatever they call it, but a team is a team. And if your spouse is like, well, I don't know if I want you to have that much commitment to another thing, well, then maybe you guys got some cracks in your foundation anyway.
I got this, like, yeah. It's like if a dude told me, like, yeah, my wife is like, okay, well, that guy probably is the same at the team practices. He's at team practice and he's not fully at our team practice.
Yes.
Like, he's just telling me, he's like, you're doing the same thing when you're at home, bro. You're at home and you're not fully at home.
Yeah, and so
so
that scope narrows down immensely. Like, they're like, how come we only getting 8 teams at these things? Well, it's like, because people want to win, and then it's sort of like, I'm not going to pick Marcus because he's not there. I'm going to pick Marcus because he's there. Mm-hmm. And it's like, so that the pool that you're pulling names out of the hat gets pretty tight pretty damn quick.
Yeah, no, because it is. There's only a certain amount of people that can do that and can manage their life that way.
But it still enriches your life if people would realize it does.
Right. 8 teams look small, but that's 32 people still coming.
There's 32 people, but it does. We did the team, I think we did 3 years or 2 years of the P&W team.
I was once with you, and then you did once with Troy.
Yeah, so it's 2 years. Brian. One of the most organized and scheduled years of my life. Because the same thing is like, I'm a little bit fly by my pants, you know, through life. Yeah. It's like Brian Strelo is not. Brian has his whole life managed down all the way through every single day. So Brian had all of our practices lined out all the way through.
This was nice.
The whole entire year. So your year gets very scheduled. It's like you learn very quickly of how to schedule your life now.
All of a sudden you realize you're that guy when they call you like a couple weeks out and they're like, you're coming, right? And you're like, yeah, and then like, but that's when you realize.
Tune in, you're like,
yeah,
man, I'm kind of putting out a little bit of bad vibe to these guys. That I might not be there.
Yeah, and maybe because like I've been on 12 teams and I've been that guy, and that's how you get experience. Is because you're the short stick.
Yeah, no, it's very. Like but you have to be aware, right? You gotta have your ears, like that third eye open a little bit of like, man, when I'm trimming, they always come by and check my frog trim.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm fucking my frog.
Maybe we shouldn't be like.
Yeah, like you gotta kind of take the hints. If like if your buddy's messaging you like, hey, how's practice going? Like, I don't think I'm practicing enough for this team event. So when you say like it does enrich you, like it's like having a life coach. For some people are like, man, a life coach is really good for me.
All right, so let's back all the way up to Facebook land again. You've got these people out there, and the one thing I've learned about posting a lot on Facebook, because we post a lot for the WCB, is that people use deflection a lot. And they're like, well, I like to work by myself. Well, what does that reek of? I like to be in charge, and I don't like to admit that I fuck shit up.
Yeah, I don't want to say, I don't want somebody to tell me that I'm fucking shit up.
Yeah, and so, like, when you're in a group, you are very seldom in charge. I mean, like, let's just say we had 9 people here for the last 2 days.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, but you're not running everything.
No.
Everybody's running you. And you're like, you made tongs, and you had 14 different perspectives on what you did wrong with your tongs. And it's like, but there's some people who are like, I don't know if I can handle it. Well, you want to go fast and you want to get to the top and you want to do things right. A group is the way to do it.
Oh my gosh. Oh, yeah. A group with skin in the game.
Yes, a group with skin in the game. Yep. Exactly. And it's like,
what do they say? Rome wasn't built in an hour or whatever. It takes a lot of people.
Day.
A day.
You sped that up a bunch, dude.
This is our new quote. Rome wasn't built in an hour, guys.
And it's like, because, all right, so every year we have the Cat 2 team. And the Cat 2 team's really, really a successful program. I think the WCB team's is successful, but the Cat 2 thing, because you could see people change, because the Cat 2 team is the first time that you're put on a team that you didn't get to handpick. Mm-hmm. You didn't get to handpick. And so then you have to decide right away if you're really into this shit, because that's it's like that's the why, that's your first big why in the road. You're on the Cat 2 team and you're like, I don't know if I like Fred.
Yeah.
But then you're like, well, I know I like shoeing horses, so how much of Fred am I going to put up with to still get what I want? And then all of a sudden, by the end of the year, you're like, Fred taught me a lot.
Yeah. Probably things that you weren't expecting to
exactly. And that's what, and everybody thinks it's about, like, and I'm like, hey, and not only that, is now everybody gets to sucker punch you. They get to pull a sack over your head and hit you right in the stomach as many times, because Riley thinks he's big shit because he's on the Cat 2 team. So we're gonna teach old Riley a lesson. Well, you get a whole year of that, don't you? Mm-hmm. Think you're a bad daddy? Well, you ain't shit. You're just on the Cat 2 team, and you really didn't ask for it that way, right?
No.
But then all of a sudden you get it.
All of a sudden you're in that seat. Yeah,
exactly.
No, it is interesting. Like, you watch guys, like, the stick and stay rate after the Cat 2 team isn't 100%, because you get guys that are like, exactly, I don't think this was worth it.
Oh yeah.
I really didn't like getting told all the time, or this guy messaging me, asked me if I'm practicing or not.
Yeah.
Like, this was not for me.
Yeah.
Like, whatsoever. You do see, it's like, but if you do make it through that, you're pretty aware. It's like, not only are you now ready to take on more things, like, you learned a little bit of people skills. Mm-hmm. I'm like, hey, it didn't work out when I went up, like, you know what, you really suck ass at trimming frogs. He just didn't take that well.
Yeah.
I had to learn how to communicate a little bit better, where it's like, I know for sure, like, me learning to communicate with team members has helped me communicate even better with my wife. If you're like, something comes off cut, you're like, I don't think I'm going to say that right away. I think I'm going to chew on this and come back in a little bit different direction.
Oh, and it's like Gavin, and I'm not going to take credit for Gavin growing up, but I've watched Gavin grow up, right? You know what I mean? And it's like he had a whole lot. Well, I'll fucking just walk away from this shit in him. You know what I mean? He had a whole lot of that in him.
Yeah, there's times.
Yeah. When people would say something, you're like, well, fuck you. You know what I mean? And then just walk off. And it's like all of a sudden, like you say, it's like a little bit more skin in the game, a little more skin in the game. You're like, well, I'm not walking off. And not only that is I'm going to figure out a way to combat that because I don't like what he said. So then you figure out ways to negotiate. And negotiating is the way you get what you want.
Yeah.
And it's not negotiating with vets, negotiating with everybody, and everybody can have a whole lot. Well, fuck that, I'll leave this, but you can only do that so many times. And then what are you gonna do? I'm the world's best pool player, and then someone says, well, you're a dumbass because you don't do this and you don't, and they're trying to take you to the next level, and you're like, I'm just gonna walk away from this shit too. You can only walk from so many times, and then you're like, well, I'm the one that's walking away from this.
Yeah.
And it's like, and like I say, I'm not trying to take credit, but I watched it. I got to be present there. And that's what's cool about the WCB. You get to be, did we do that? No, but I think we created a community that does a lot of that.
Ladies and gentlemen, I want to tell you about our fine sponsor of the show, World Championship Blacksmiths. As you may know, the next big upcoming contest is Spruce Meadows, and that's where they'll decide on who becomes the next world champion in the world for 2024. If you want to find out details on how you can be a part of it and go up there to watch and support us, go check them out on their website. The sole focus is so you can become better, and putting yourself in that environment will push you to an area that you didn't even know you had within yourself. The WCB is about holding on to tried and true methods of trimming, shoemaking, and most of all, fit. The goal is always to have the horse better off in the end. The farrier to become efficient and skilled to whatever comes to their way that they can tackle. They're doing more than just putting on horseshoeing competitions. They're creating a community amongst us of the greatest hardworking folks that'll step up and help you along the way. The WCB is putting on the greatest horseshoeing contests in the world, and we personally believe here at Forge and Brains Podcast that it's important to test yourself and try to become better every day. So it's awesome to have the World Championship Blacksmiths sponsor the show. Help support them by going to their website, www.worldchampionshipblacksmiths.com, and buy some merch to show your support, and use code BRAINS for 10% off your order. It's not including contest or membership fees.
Oh, I like
Brings you back into the fold.
Yeah, because, and it's like, what's that?
Having a group of people who like hold you accountable.
Yeah.
Like we watch you, not Gavin, but you watch the person walk away, and so when you have 80 guys watch you walk away, you might think, well, maybe I'm the asshole here. I'll come back. Hey guys, I come back.
peer pressure works.
Yes.
Like good or bad, it does work. To like, well, I can't just quit in front of everybody. Because like I do like these people a little bit. Like,
yeah.
Like, I don't want to. I still want to be part of this crowd. So like I need to find a way to like negotiate this, so everybody's kind of happy in this whole entire situation.
It happens all the time. So at a contest, Chris and I have to put our feelings aside, get a little thick skin, and realize that people are going to get mad. But those people that kind of showed their ass and got mad, by the time Wednesday or Thursday comes around, they call up and they're like, hey, and all they are is heat checks. Yep. Let's just say Riley gets mad because he placed third and he didn't think so. And he thought Chris and I have just come to the realization that that's the heat of the moment. That's the competitive spirit. Yep. That's I was in there. I was in the trenches, man, and I got fucked, right? Oh, so then about Wednesday, Riley calls and says, hey, did I leave a sweatshirt laying around there? Just to feel the room. And we're like, no, but we'll keep an eye out for it. And he's like, hey, man, I really had a good time. In my opinion, when someone says, hey, I really had a good time, that's an apology. Maybe it wasn't, but I take it as an apology. I had a really good time. And then by the end of the conversation, it's like, yeah, we're really looking forward to the next one. And those are things, because those just happen. Yep. You know what I mean? But it's peer pressure. It's all that stuff. It's like, because all competitors do it. I don't care if it's Chris Madrid. I don't care if it's Bodie Trnka. Bodie's like, and then you just let it just ride for a little while, and then all of a sudden, like I say, the heat check comes where they're like, hey man, I just didn't know, like I have somebody's ruler. It's always just something like that. I have somebody's ruler, and I just want, because they're just calling to see, like, I did show my ass, I was emotional, I was invested, and now I'm over it, and I think that it probably turned out the way it should have turned out.
It does, but I think it's like that was the lesson right there. So it's like the next time it probably comes up, they're like, wow, last time I had a call and kind of fucking apologized. I think this time I'm just gonna chill the fuck out.
Yes. Yes.
I think this time I'm just not gonna say anything, so then I don't got a call.
Yes.
Here in a few days. Like, it's funny how it kind of like teaches you a lesson.
Because competition has an ugly side to it, and if you were to let it go, I guarantee you, I don't think. If you were to just get caught up in the competitors, the way the competitors get caught up, I don't think we'd still be doing it. But now Chris and I know, like, shoo, just let it go over your head. But if we didn't get those heat check calls, then I don't think we'd still be doing it. But people do come to their senses.
I think it a lot. It's like, man, you guys are always busy. You guys are just always. So it's like, you have to love it, right? Like,
oh. Yeah, and Chris, like we've said it before, but it's like we're tired by the time the contest gets here because like Chris is organizing. Like she's laying sheets of paper on top of each other to stick in the anvil stands. Like there's so much stuff she lays. She has to organize the sheets of paper that go in the anvil stands with the tags that get picked up. And then sure enough, there'll be one out of place because Tom Willoughby or Roy will come in and say they'll be like, hey, this tag didn't line up. So then all hell breaks loose, you know, and all this. But you get tired, and then you have the contest. But I guarantee you, it's like we'll be sitting there watching TV, and it's like I used to feel persecuted, but I feel like it was a gift. Like all these people came to our house. They put blood, sweat, and tear, and they cried and had emotion, and they were fucking worked up, and they gave a shit, and they did it at our house. And it's like, so then we get a charge again. You know, you get charged up again, and you're like ready to go. And those are the ebb and flows. You know what I mean? But it's like, but 2 days after a contest, you're like, hey, Chris inevitably is always like, well, if we did this an hour earlier, I think that would have worked better. And I was like, yeah, you know what I mean? And all of a sudden we're putting it all together, off to the next one. And it's like what you do with a project, like what you do. And I'm just gonna blow smoke for a bit, but like the artistic value that you bring to blacksmithing, have you regenerated interest in? And like people can say, like people will always say stuff like, well, it might have taken him 3 days. Well, I don't give a shit if it took him fucking 2 months. The artistic value that you've recreated and brought back to life, and then put it on Instagram and Facebook is amazing. And it's like, but you see every flaw in that thing.
Oh yeah.
And that's what, but then all of a sudden you're sick of it. And it didn't turn out. It never turned out as well as you thought it would. But the right camera angle, we'll fucking pass this one on, and then we'll get to the next one. But then all of a sudden you're like, the new project comes along, and that's what everybody needs. Those things, and people who don't need those things, I really don't care to be around them.
Yeah. No, it just speaks to a lot of like both you guys as people. Like that's. I don't know either how people can just hang out. And just ride every day, knowing it's gonna be the same as the last. So it's like, I guess I do see how you guys push so hard at it, because it is something that
so like you guys are,
so big.
you know, as people are preparing to go to the contest, you guys are preparing to make the contest better. So it's almost like the same process, like for you and Chris.
Yeah.
You know, you're working hard to improve it each and every time.
Yeah, and that's he's saying too. It's just like, you know, you go to a WCB and you're like, this was all amazing. Like you see like how cool it was, right? And it's like Craig's still so already seeing what you're gonna like nail next time. You're like, yeah, this may not have been perfect, but it's like, it takes a special person to not let that wear on you, to see the good in that, and not negative.
Yeah, well, you know, there's shit that gets broke, but you're like, was that really that big of a deal? At the time, you're like, motherfuckers could wreck a bowling ball with a feather. They just screw up all my shit, and you'd be, goddamn kids, get out of my yard, you know that? But it's just, those are just things, and then, but when you think about it, you're like, man, I get to be around the coolest people, and like the fray on Facebook land, I don't really care about those people that are ragging on me. If Marcus wrote something, he's like, if I didn't take the comedy and the gist in it, and he said something hateful, it would get me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It would get me. If any of you guys said that, if you just said it to be like, Greg, you're a dick, and I knew it wasn't just you ribbing me, yeah, it would get me. But for the most part, I don't think anybody does that. No one does that.
No. It's that's what I like about going to it. It's like they're so worth taking time and going to. It's like it's just real life. Facebook, it reminds you. It's like, okay, Facebook was all a bunch of shit.
It's like a false reality.
Yeah. It's just like sometimes it is where it's like you get there in real life, and it's funny like the WCB page doesn't have as much posting through the weekend, right? Because like everybody's so in the moment and having a good time there.
Yeah.
And you don't get a bunch of shit talking or anything like that, because everybody's there in person. It's like, it's one of the, you can like, there'll be people there sometimes that might have done some shit talking, like all of a sudden none of that fucking matters anymore. None of the Facebook bullshit matters anymore. And it's just real life. Everybody's here trying to shoot some horses and get better.
And that, like, just a quick plug for the World Championship, but that's what's so cool about going up to Spruce Meadows is those people are doing the same thing. They're like Linda Heathcott talked to me like just like a regular old person. But then when you get up there, she's a superstar. She gives to this trust. She helps these people out. She's got like a mile square piece of property that she has to be the MC, and she's coming and hanging out at our tent, and she's helping us. And when we had the think tank after the event was over, there was criticisms, but they were like, how do we make it better for next year? How do we, and there was never being bigger and better. They were just like, how do we execute better for next year? How do we execute better? And it's like, they're just like us on a grander scale. You know what I mean? So now you get to be the short stick again. And you're like, well, I just hope that we come through. And they're like, well, we think we could do this. And they have their group of people that they're worrying. They're hoping they pull it off. They hope people don't see this or see that. But it's still like right down to Charlie. He's like, I hope we can get this done. I hope we can do this right. You know what I mean? And that's what we're all doing. And because it was funny, Charlie called me right after the contest was over last time. He said, hey, what do you think about tongs? I was like, tongs is cool. Tongs is a good spectator thing. And then that's what's going to be good about Fort Worth, because I'm going to be spoiler alert, but the Fuller and the draft bar shoe it's like one of those things where people can get into the whole, you built a tool out of just a block of steel, and then you actually demonstrated it, and you did
nothing into something.
And you turned nothing into something, and you got to watch 85 competitors do the same thing, and it's addicting as hell. And so like when we go up to Calgary and we have the tong making class, all of it will be fun, but the connection will be the greatest between the tong making class and the audience, because they watched.
They'll be seeing a tool versus a horseshoe.
Yeah, and like we all appreciate horseshoes because we've turned it into this nano, scrupulous critiquing.
Minor details.
Yes.
A live shooting, watching a live shooting class for a person that doesn't know what's going on is too long.
Yeah.
It takes too long. The shoemate turns into a horseshoe really quick, but then there's a whole bunch of stuff before that thing all of a sudden turns into a shot horse.
Yes.
It's a long time. Where tongs are very quickly go from nothing to like, oh, all of a sudden those are recognizable. Now they're together.
Yeah.
It's very, I'm with you. I think it's a really good thing.
Hasn't it been like in the past, have tongs been on the Calgary shoe list?
Yeah, in different variations. It's always, well, because it's a fan favorite. And it's like, and everybody, like, what's bad about technology is everybody wants bigger and better and different. And it doesn't, I kind of rebel against that, because it's like, we have new novice people all the time. People are like, how come we're doing the same old novice shoes? And you're like, because those are hardcore foundation things that, and like my life is Groundhog Day. Starts over. Every contest, we have new people that come in. I can see them across the tent, someone who's nervous as hell because they think that everybody's looking at them. You know what I mean? And they're a novice person, and they're just hoping that they don't hit themselves in the dick with a hammer whenever they're bumping up. Right? And it's like...
And little does he know, so's the Cat 3 guy and the Cat 4
yeah,
guy.
exactly.
He's worried about the same thing.
All right, so like when you talk to people, competition, like it's about... People think that we're there because we're making horseshoes. And I was like, that's the farthest thing. We're learning to compete. And once you learn to compete, you can compete at building your business as a blacksmith. You're learning to compete at everything. You're learning how to negotiate and get around that person that's looking at the red meat in the grocery store that you want. You're like, when you don't know how to compete, you're just like, guess I'll just wait here until that dumb bitch gets out of the way.
Yeah.
But then you're all of a sudden you're like, excuse me, ma'am, have you noticed this? And you learn how to compete. And it's like, people don't realize that we're not making horseshoes. We're learning how to compete at everything.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because you said it best. You're like, you look over there and someone's got the snot dripping kid that's a brat that everybody's hoping he does a face plant on the ground, and that you have to take him to the car and you don't have to put up with him the rest of the day. Well, you're learning something from that. You're learning something from everything.
Oh, completely. It is cool to see. It's like, and it's not a surprise. So like the people that are helping put on Spruce, successful people.
Yes.
Successful people. I think that's why they're attracted to the WCB crowd. And one of those, like the competitive farrier crowd, is like, these are people that know how to work at something.
Yes.
Accomplish something.
Yes.
You can see that, like, because I've gotten in the past couple of years, I'm working with like higher end business people and higher end people in our world, and it's like they are all the same people as good competitors.
Yes, that's the link.
It's like you're like completely. It's like you learn how to compete and not get mowed over.
Yes.
Like in a conversation, it is a great thing. Like it's cool to see this crowd getting recognized from that crowd and getting Spruce to happen.
And like the one thing that doesn't get talked about very much, but Gavin has approximately 80 people that he works for. You have approximately 80 people that you work for, give or take, you know what I'm saying? And you have approximately 80 people that you work for. And so a lot of those are in excellent positions too, because if you have horses, you're probably luxury item. And so now we have like the ultimate networking, don't we?
Oh, completely.
And it's like, and so when you go up there, all of a sudden you realize like what do they say? It's like the whole world is connected by 6 people.
Yeah.
And that becomes pretty evident when you start like, then all of a sudden Paul O'Reilly's like, I know that dude. And Ian Spud Allison's like, I know that dude. And then all of a sudden you're like, Linda Heathcott is talking to someone that's in the group that they're like, oh, I know her mom. And you all of a sudden you realize that it's all connected, and that's
a big reality check
Small
for me
world.
over the past couple of years of like, all of a sudden you're having conversations with very high-end people. So it's like, you're like, because everybody does know everybody, especially in the horse.
Oh, yeah. And so
very
failure's a
world.
big thing.
Yeah.
Being prosperous is a big thing, but it's like to go up there and to get this and to let us be a part of it, and to actually, like, we have a long way. I like we have a long way, because we have horseshoers, and horseshoers want to be horseshoers, and I don't blame them. Like when we're here at the Roadrunner Classic at my house, I don't care where you put your toolboxes. I don't care. It's casual. And then, but when we go to Fort Worth, you're like, man, we want to attract people in here. So it's not supposed to look like a cockfight that you're really not invited, and you're just kind of looking over people's shoulders, and you're like, let's see what's going on in there, because that's not what
That's
we.
the best description ever.
Don't you think though? Like when you're at one, all you're saying like, hey, there's music going on over there.
Yeah.
And then you're like, I wonder if they're fighting chickens. You know what I mean? And then because I see it look on people's faces time and time again, they're like, I wonder if we're allowed to go in there.
Yeah.
I wonder if we can go in there. And we want to do away with that. And that was probably our biggest hurdle at Spruce, was like, this is not casual. This is not, hey, I want to see how Stephen Bean made it. It's like, you go hang out with Stephen Bean and see how he does stuff. But at this deal, we want spectators to see it. Mm-hmm. And I'm sorry, but we're showcasing Stephen Bean. So you don't get to sit in front of everybody with a sweaty shirt on and be cock blocking everybody and making sure that they can't see in there. You know what I mean? It's like, and so then we had our catastrophe with putting toolboxes out and everywhere. And so we have hurdles, but I don't think they're insurmountable hurdles, but we had things that we want to be a clean running machine, and we're far from that.
Well, Spruce is kind of like a different contest than any other, where so you guys ask for people to send in specimen shoes, right?
Yes.
And it can kind of come from basically anybody.
Trying to get it from everybody.
So what are like some of the guidelines like you want to put out there for people,
well, I think that
are wanting to make a specimen
I think
shoe?
that, all right, so one thing about specimens, that's a good question, is don't be time orientated. I want to look at my shoe like Gavin's looking at. So get your basics in there. Like, I want to make a tow bar shoe. Well, get your basics in there and then just set it down for a little while. And when you come back, you'll look at it like Gavin's looking at. But at the time, you're doing it just like I said, when you're at a contest, you're got so much ownership that you're like mad at everybody. Like, I took third and it's your fault.
Yeah.
And then, but once you get away from it, you realize, I took third and I was glad I didn't take fourth. And so when you make a specimen, you're trying to make it to where you take your time. It's not, and
so don't necessarily worry about like I got to make this in the 45 minutes.
No, you're trying to make a specimen. You're trying to not have that toenail have a little crooked in it. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? You're trying to do all that stuff, and so then you're trying to you're just trying to a foot. Specimen's got to have a foot in. got to have a foot. If that, there's not a horseshoe on the face of the planet that like, the last thing you want anybody to do is look at a specimen and say, I don't see a foot in it.
Yeah.
Even if it's
gotta
for a
have all the
particular
elements in there.
foot, like a lot like England's evolved to where they have it for a specific, like you're like, yeah, I do 4 right hinds like that, and I know the problem that guy's trying to get away from. So having said that, but then we just wanted things that I don't want it to be an American company putting on a competition.
Worldwide.
I want it to be an international competition where everybody feels like they got a shot.
Yep.
And so,
that's
you know what I mean? And
yeah.
so like, and then I want, so like, I'm not going to lie. I was a little disappointed. I had to throw a few of my shoes into the shoe list because I fell short on the international shoes. And so I want people to send shoes because, and then to make it more international, I try to pick shoes like we got 2 judges. Mm-hmm. And what I found out last year, which was really cool, was the judges stayed really close to the specimens because they didn't make the specimens.
Yeah.
So then it worked out, and you wouldn't think it would, but it worked out really well that the judges.
I was thinking like that's got to be like a tough way to judge. When you didn't make the shoes at all, and then you're just trying to like judge them to this.
But at one time, like it lets you fully pull out yourself. You're like
exactly.
When you make the specimen, you're judging it. You're like, well, he was kind of off. But man, my shoe wasn't perfect, so maybe I'll kind of give it to him because I didn't really like how mine was anyway. You start going down that route, like, well, maybe his is better than mine. Maybe I screwed up, and that he made the better one. But then if you didn't
because you don't start competing with the competitor.
Yes.
The judge isn't competing with the competitor, and I've seen that plenty.
Yep. It's really easy to do, and like you have to I haven't judged a ton, but I've judged enough to know that I felt my subconscious creeping in, and I'm like, whoa, you just gotta. This is what it is.
Yeah.
Today. So I think it is kind of a nice thing. Like when the specimen isn't yours, you just gotta totally take it out. And the cool thing is like when they are more international shoes, like there's shoes on the list that you could tell like there's that Swiss shoe. Well, we're a bunch of American guys, and you'd watch all of us made and we made them like Americans. When the first ones were getting made, that was we Americanized the crap out of it.
Yeah.
So it is nice of like that judge just gets to look at it like, well, no, this is what it is today. Like,
it is what it is.
And it's not my style either. Like it's just a completely unbiased. Like I think that is a good way.
And would it be like acceptable? So like, there's a tong class. If somebody wanted to make like a hammer, could they send that in or like make some? And then you guys may decide to use it.
Yeah, I think that those are like that's what we want to do. We want it to grow. We want it to take on a life of its own. And I think that all right. So I would say as short as nine years ago, you didn't see very many people make a driving hammer.
No.
Yeah. And now you see you see people like
it.
I made a driving hammer. So like you're wondering, could a person make a driving hammer in the time? Well, if they could, you know what I'm saying? And it's like, and like a lot of people say, well, that's not real horseshoe and that's not this or that. So, but not everybody drives in NASCAR. But everybody who drives a car gets the benefit of NASCAR because NASCAR is pushing the envelope and they're like aerodynamics, tire wear, everything. And they're pushing the envelope. So like everybody's like, well, I don't care about NASCAR, but NASCAR, they go so fast as far as technology that they have to start putting restrictions on it. Like they're like, hey, we could build a car that could go 300 miles an hour, but is that good? So they put restrictor plates and stuff like that. Well, horseshoeing is the same way. It's the same way as NASCAR. It's sort of like everybody figures out what can be done, and then all of a sudden you're like, holy cow, we didn't even think that could be done. And then all of a sudden you see it creeping in to like, hey, we went to a hammer making clinic and we made a claw. We all went home with our own claw hammer.
No, it is such a like. Those guys can all say they don't like competition or whatever else, but then they're all using fullers and 4-punches and driving hammers that are all mocked after tools that competitors came up with.
Exactly.
That's such a good point that it does like lead
it leaches into everything.
Yeah. Is it? And that's like Shane says it's like you have to own your trade on the whole entire thing. So it is things like even making that little banner that we made yesterday. Well, that stuff will help you in horseshoeing.
Of
Like,
course.
So it is something that, like, people do get pretty stuck up, like, oh, well, it has to be horseshoeing. And it's like, well, we're going to throw a fuller into Fort Worth. Because it is, like, if you can now make your tools and you can understand how a fuller runs, you're going to run a fuller way better. And it's going to push everything forward.
And it's a short ride. Everybody's like, and you hear that cop out a lot. It's like, why would I wear out my body trying to make a fuller? And I'm like, man, it's a short ride. It's a short ride. And so education, you're hoping that you don't die before you're just an old dumb fuck. You know what I'm saying? And it's like it goes quick, and because it's gone. Like, I'm embarrassed. Like, when I first started, I would like lie to people. I would lie to people right to their face. I was like, yeah, I've been shoeing for 3 years when I was right out of shoeing school, because I was like, they're not gonna let me work on their horse.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So I would just be like, yeah, I've been doing it for a few years, and they'd be like, all right, because you look kind of stupid, you know. And I was like, well, I am, but that's what it takes to be a good horseshoer, you know. And so then you go on, and then when you get a lot older, you're like, I don't know, I've not been doing this very long, you know, and you kind of hide it because you're like, I wish I would have been a little bit farther along in the process. And so now, like, and you like, Craig, you're pretty old to want to be doing this and that, and you're like, yeah, I know, 42 years went by like that, and I wish I would have, like, been on top of it a little bit better. Yeah. You know what I mean? And it's like, but I don't even think I would have been close to it if we hadn't done the WCB, and you would have not got to be a voyeur. Get to watch it. You watch a lot of people, and you watch a lot of excellence. And like, before we came on with the deal, it was like probably a huge deal in my life, was a very huge deal, was whenever we were watching the English kid put the piece of concave on a horse at Las Vegas, and the two judges were like being super critical. I thought they were being critical, and they were just falling into what their job was that weekend, right? It wasn't a personality thing or nothing like that. It was just, when you become a judge, we always laugh, but the best way to turn a farrier into a prick is give him a white coat. You know what I mean? It's like, because then they start thinking that their opinion counts.
Do we get to wear the white coats?
Oh yeah, you guys do. And well, but you know what I'm saying? Then all of a sudden they're like, they almost seem like that dude who paints. They're like, wow. And you're like, so they're beating this kid up pretty good, and then. So I pick up the foot after they walk off and they're judging other stuff, and I'm looking at it, and Bob is looking over the safety barrier, Bob Pethick, and I was like, what do you think, man? He's like, I know I couldn't have done that well in the time allotted to do it. And I was like, it was huge for me, because it was like, it was such a good job that, and they were trying to find fault in it, and we were just like, I don't think I could have done that on my best day, on my best year, you know. And it's like, it was just one of those things where you're like, to hear Bob say that, I felt like, whew, it's all right to be dumb. You know what I mean? It's all right to not know.
Be simple.
Yeah. Yeah. And then the pressure's off. And then it's like when you come to the 8-person clinic, it's just a think tank. It's sort of like everybody, and no one doesn't know Riley's going to do something. And everybody's like, they give Riley the floor, not because it's like it's a polite thing to do, because we're in a think tank. No one gives a shit about manners. It's just like, well, Riley's taking the floor now because he's in charge. And you see what I'm saying? And then it's like Chris shows up and he's like going to do something. Everybody's like, let Chris do something. And then it's like, and then all of a sudden Ryan jumps out there and does something. It's like, that's what makes everything go fast and forward quick, don't you think?
Oh my gosh, I was mentioning that before. It's like, we took someone's like personal practice and scrunched it down to like a couple hours, multiple times in these last couple days.
Yes.
We're like, so like I made one of the shoes on the specimen list. It's for a spruce. It's an Arab front. So like I made one when we first got here. I made one, and I wasn't trying to make it fast. Right? I just tried to show everybody the things I put in it, and then you made one, how you would make it in a go.
Yeah.
And the things that are going to probably come down to. So it was like, well, somebody has to realize that, because like that's what you do in your own practice usually. You see the specimen, you're like, all right, well, I'm just going to try to make the specimen. And now I got to try to figure out how to make it quickly.
Yes.
And going through, it's like, well, that happened within a couple hours for everybody to see in front of them. So like so that when they went to go practice right after they watched the demo, they didn't have to make 6-7 shoes to get to that point.
Yes.
They got to start right at your quick way and try to refine it.
Ladies and gentlemen, I want to tell you about a upcoming venture that is coming up. It's a clinic and contest that David Moose is putting on at Forging M Farm in North Carolina. The contest and clinic are limited to a few spots, so be sure to get a hold of David Moose and sign up with him and let him know that you want to go. And then also in June of 2025, our very own Radley Kirkpatrick is doing a forging clinic at the Forging M facility as well, and that's June 6th and 7th of 2025. And the topics of discussion are going to include tooling and fullering, tool building, and tool maintenance. So if you guys are looking forward to a private clinic with either Troy Wood and Riley Kirkpatrick, get a hold of David Moose and Forging M Farm on Facebook and let them know that you want to be involved and go to that place. I personally went and did a clinic with him last year and can attest to you're going to have a good time, and it's a pretty nice facility to work in. So he's also working on getting anvils and forges set up there so that if you wanted to fly in, you could do so as well. So get a hold of him and let him know.
And so
it was cool to see.
And that's what those guys, Jim Poor and Grant Moon and Jim Keith, they'd all get together before Calgary and practice. And that's the message I got out of it. Was it's like everybody in the group can swing a hammer. They could probably take the heel of the hammer and make a mark, just like all of us could do the similar things. Yep. But to change your mind is harder. So now you've got 4 people that went in front of you, and you're trying to outdo them, and they've already changed your mind on a few things. You're like, man, he came short on the inside. Well, you don't have to make the mistake. Don't come short on the inside.
Exactly.
And it's like, it goes quick. And I guess I am a combative person because I wish that everybody would get to experience that. But people are like, well, that's not for me. And that's not, and I was like, well, if you're into horseshoeing and shoeing horses and trimming horses, and that should be for you.
I think people just get like, if they don't think it's for them, I think they should give it a try.
Yeah.
Because it might be for you.
It might be for you.
Realize that it's not that bad being in that environment. It's not as negative as like they might just think like, well, I don't like being told I suck, and it's like, well, no one's just gonna spit in your face. It's gonna be okay. It's gonna be a gentle like nudge in the right direction.
Something that I've kind of like thought about through this conversation that we've been having right now is like coming to these competitions almost like sets you up in a position to be able to learn. You know, just through the competition. You know, it's not necessarily just
how do you
trying
learn
to go for first place. Like it breaks you into a way like, oh, now I can see things a little bit better and like more accepting to like learn different ideas and things.
All right, so you got this is what everybody's battling under there, and you do it in every aspect of life. Is everybody comes up and they're like, man, if I could have just made shoes as good as the last pair I laid on the floor. It's because everybody chokes. I don't care if you're at the Olympics, if you're at the Super Bowl, and the person that doesn't choke is usually going to do better than the person that does choke. Mm-hmm. But that's what choking is that you don't want to realize you choke. So like everybody, there's not a person that comes out of there that's like, man, I wish that I could move my arms the first 15 minutes of the class. Like I wish I didn't feel like I was in a 3-year-old's body. Yeah. And there's not a person that doesn't say that. There's not a person that comes up and says, man, this was so easy. I can't believe I won the first 3 classes at my first WCB. It's just been it's like everybody chokes and everybody sucks. So we think it's about shoemaking. Well, no, I would say that Marcus probably has yet to lay down a pair of shoes like he lays down in his shop. He's just like, I wish I could get to that. And all you're doing is trying to make your body do what it knows how to do. Mm-hmm. And it's like, and there's so many mental aspects of that. So it's like, so the day that you can lay down something that you do in your shop is the day that you start to not choke. Well, people are like, how do I get to that point? Well, it's like, holy cow. That's why I'm saying it's a short ride.
They say like take bull riding, for instance. They say like 90% of it's mental and 10% of it's physical. Yeah. How much do you think like for competitive horseshoeing, how much do you think of that as mental and how much do you think is that physical? Would it be like a 50-50 split?
I would say that like, and I mean, like, I think 2 people that are perfect examples is Chase Roybal, Marcus Appleyard. Big strapping kids that are strong.
Yeah.
Are they accurate with their hammers? Yeah, I think they're accurate with their hammers, because I think that their proprioception is good. I think that right now here, if we had a simple test without any stress, I think we all could perform the test on pretty much an equal. But it's all knowing when and why and how and all that stuff. But
which would be the mental.
But Marcus and Chase, that it's just like, when do I do that? When do I? But I don't think any of it's physical. And I think that people would argue with me, but I've seen people. There's little puny people that can do like, and I shouldn't even say that in the same word, but it's like Reese Steinhorst.
Yeah.
He can do what he wants to that piece of steel, but then all of a sudden when he gets nutted up, he can't do anything to that piece of steel. Yeah. And I think that Marcus is the same way. I think that Marcus has the physical ability now to unleash his mind and let him be able to do it. Whew.
Yeah. So
it's a short ride. You're like,
that's been my biggest struggle for competition. Yeah. I don't think it's like the figuring out the shoes for me, or being able to forge them or anything like that. But like, I guarantee you watched me lose it in the middle of a go.
Oh, and people, and then it's like,
I know that's like the mental side is I get there and I'm like, I don't know, like say that we were talking about, it's like I can pick up a foot and I can see a good foot in it. Like I know I'm gonna trim that foot, but then I'm like, is that right? Should you do that?
And you let that creep in.
And the darkness starts fading in.
Combating
all of a
your
sudden,
own
you're
brain.
like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do.
The judgment gets too short.
Yeah,
too long.
yeah. It's a really hard thing. No, I do think it's a lot mental.
And so then you turn right around and you're in a group of 75 people and you're like, who here has pissed their pants in the last year? No one's going to raise their hand.
Yeah.
I have. I do it all the time. And it's the same thing when you. So it's the untalked about thing. Who here chokes on a regular basis? Oh, I do. I ran my car into a fucking wall the other day, just choked up. No, it's the untalked about thing. It's the fucking elephant in the room that no one talks about. So now it's not even progressing forward because no one's talking about it, right? It's like, okay, who's pissing their pants? Yeah, I do it all the time. This is how I stopped doing it. That's just not public knowledge.
No, I think it's just 100% true.
And so then once everybody realizes that everybody's fighting, but I guarantee you, it's a really, really, really tight is the word, tight frame where, let's just say Marcus comes in. How many years you been doing it at the WCB?
This is the 4th year.
All right. So getting the chokeness under control is also under a timeline of, am I really supposed to be doing this? Because that's the other shadow of doubt, is it's like tenacity. Like, can I withstand beating the choke?
What do you think are some things like somebody can do to help prepare themselves? Like, say they do choke consistently under pressure. Have you ever had to go through that where you had to overcome choking or anything?
Oh, yeah. I suck, dude. I suck big time. I still suck big time where I'll take a whole heat out because I think I'm John Wayne. I'm like, normally I do this, but I'm on a roll. I'm on a roll. I'm rolling, man. I'm going to fucking whip these guys. Like, there's no one in this class. And that's choking in itself, too. And so, like, and I take a whole heat out.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no one will notice. And then people are like, man, that branch looks like shit. I was like, yeah, I took a heat out. All right, so to get the choke out of there, is tiredness. You have to whip your body. And so like on the Tour de France, before the time trial, these guys are sitting on this bike. And I'm like, that fucker's gone 800 miles before he even gets, because they're trying to trick their body into not caring.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so, like, it's almost like the WCB would be good to have 2 treadmills set up somewhere. And you're like,
Oh, yeah.
take out that, because that choking is also what keeps you alive. So, like, when you're in war, people don't know what they're going to happen when you get actually in, like,
battle.
And the battle. And even though it's not a battle, it is a battle.
Yeah, no, it's putting your body in that position. Like, it's putting your mind, like, hey, fight or flight.
Yes.
How you doing?
And some people roll over like a lamb and they die, and some people don't. But it's like you don't know, and that's why they in boot camp and stuff they scare the fuck out of those kids, is because they're like, let's try and simulate a little bit of that fight or flight right now. And so that's what I think you have to do whenever you get choked up, whether it be meditation, like you're like, all right, Craig, I know that you're on that left-handed Fullerton. You're gonna dog out a little bit, and so you try to meditate and see where you can do that better. And a lot of people don't do that. But you have to cope with your mind trying to fuck you. Somehow you got to cope with that, and that's the key to everything. That's the key to a gymnast. Like those gymnasts are under a huge amount of pressure at the Olympics. A swimmer, could you imagine being a swimmer and then you're like, I'm the world's fastest swimmer, but on that third leg, I always get a hammy. You're not going to swim as fast with a hammy as you are if you're loose. Yeah. You know what I mean? So those people, and so people get mad because people smoke dope, take gummies, do all kinds of stuff. And then they get banned because they were like, well, I don't know if I was physically trying to be better than you, but I was mentally trying to get to where I could be as good as you.
Yeah. Yep. Oh, yeah.
Do you agree with that?
Yeah.
And I don't know. We don't have substance abuse, and I see people all the time drink a beer first thing in the morning. And do I think they're an alcoholic? No. I think they're trying to chill out.
Yeah, no, it is, because it's like, you've said it before, you're like, I can walk up and I can make somebody hit themselves in the nuts just talking to them on the microphone.
Yeah, and I don't want to do that. So
I know. So it's like, it's funny. It's like, that's how much mental it is. It's like,
yes,
literally just I could grab their attention with a feather.
Yes.
Like,
yes, and it's not good. And so I'm trying to set people up like let's just say Nikki. Nikki would be like, she came up to me, I put her in the first go, and she goes, Nikki's like, I get tired and worn out towards the end of the day, so I'd like to be well, why wouldn't I put her at the first of the morning? Yeah. And then there's other people who are like, man, you made me shoot my wad early, and I think I would have placed a lot better if I'd have been at the end. I try to put people in a position to where they're going to win, but like when you get to a contest like the Worlds, it's just you're trying to be fair to everybody.
Yeah.
And those people, for the most part, have overcome those animosities of anxiety and stress and choking. Mm-hmm. And that's why I told Bodie's like, I'm not qualified to go to the World Championship. And I said, but it's a 3-year deal just to even sort out that whole choking thing. So like the first year it's a sacrificial first.
Yeah.
You have to go and you have to see what you're going to choke about. And then you can, because if you can't visualize it too, so like let's say you go up to Spruce and you're like, it'll throw you way off if you're like, man, I expected there to be pine trees in this, and we were on a pavement parking lot. Well, that in itself will throw you into a different frame of mind. So just knowing, like this next year, you're like, yeah, I can smell that asphalt. I can smell everything. It's like that's part of not choking. Yeah. I think. Yeah, I believe that to be.
Nothing's throwing your attention.
Yes, and so now you're already immersed yourself in the picture that you painted in your mind. Yeah. But when you go the first time, you don't even know what that picture was. So now you're like, oh man, this isn't what I imagined it being. Because we all did that. When you go to Calgary, you imagine the big top with the yellow and the white and suffocating because you couldn't breathe. And we put ourselves in that picture, and that's how you competed. But when you don't even know what the picture is, and then you think you're gonna go, it's like, you know.
Oh yeah, no, I think like you watch guys for their first time at this trailer. Yeah. Just working at this trailer is a whole different mindset. So it's like, I'm sure like some American guys probably had a little bit of an edge. You know, an American guy didn't win this last year, but it had to be a little edge just being familiar with his trailer.
Without a doubt, and
it's like it's just familiarity. Like when I hit the air gate this much, this happens. When I turn here, the anvil's right here. Like the vices work just like this. Like if I get to draw this one, I'm gonna be hot and not have any air. Like
there are hurdles that can happen, but you've faced them before, so you can prevent them from happening.
They're not grabbing your attention.
Just preparedness.
Yeah, but I would definitely say that no matter what, I think, and so think about that: is you torture yourself to go to a WCB and learn how to overcome choking, right? You torture yourself basically because it's torture. It's a form of torture, right?
Physically and mentally.
But think about what that does for when you're dealing with your customers.
Oh yeah.
You're like, I've tortured myself, and then you got this lady just looking at you,
Yeah.
and you're doing this. Well, you handle that way better than before you learned how to torture yourself at a WCB. Do you agree with that?
Oh yeah, that is business 101. Like, more I've dealt with business people, they try to put you in an unfamiliar situation and throw you off so they can take advantage of you.
Yeah, to get the edge on you.
Like, that's what it is. But like, I've just learned through competing. It's like, I'm staying conscious.
Yes.
To this whole thing about this main goal.
Exactly, and
you're not gonna get me with the fluff.
And you're reading
Like,
everything of it. You're reading, and you're saying, and what you're doing is you're like those people that work at a carnival and they can tell you what you're thinking, or people who do the tarot cards. They were reading you before you even walked in the door. They're like, and people think it's eerie. You're like, you know, I had a boyfriend that worked at NASA, and you're like, yeah, it was written all over your face. You know what I mean? It's like, yeah, I did know that.
Exactly.
And it's like, and they're like, how did you know that? It's like, that's competing, and that's why I say, it's such a shame that people think that we're making horseshoes under that tent, because there's a lot more going on than just making horseshoes.
Yeah. So you guys bought this chunk of property next to your place
Yeah.
here, and you're wanting to put in an education center, like a World Championship Blacksmith headquarters education center. Would you say that's one of the biggest goals for it? Is just to get people in and give them that experience?
Yeah.
Make them realize
Yeah.
that it's not about just shooting.
Well, and I think we have a sense of community, but we have a sense of community like the Sioux tribe. We're in teepees and we're going around, and we don't have a home, and we don't have a shrine to ourselves, and we don't. And people have been, and that may sound self-serving, but we have a lot of cool shit that's around the world that is in corporate offices because they bought that stuff at an auction and this and that, and we've never really made a shrine to ourselves. And Lee Lyles did a really good job of making a shrine to the horseshoer, but then he passes away and it got dismantled and it got thrown into different corners of the world. And so I think that we need to have a home, we need to have a building, we need to have, and I don't think that Riley Kirkpatrick should have to hook his wagon to the Oregon Farriers Association to do a clinic. I think that, like, that, and in my eyes, I see, like, if you have something that's weighing on your mind and you think it's worthy, we have a vehicle that can do that. We're gonna have a power hammer in there, 16 anvils and forges, and if someone was like, let's make a sandwich knife, put 2 pieces of wood on it and make a sandwich knife, and everybody, we could do that. If we wanted to make a driving hammer, and these are things that, we could do certifications. We can do anything. It's a vehicle, and there's homes in every, like, if anybody's got on the Swiss Farrier team's page, they have the coolest smithy over there.
Yep.
And that's just one of many. And so now I can guarantee you can talk to anybody in the farrier industry, and they're like, the biggest fish to fry is an American market. There's a big American market for horseshoeing. But yeah, we don't have a shrine to ourselves.
No, it's very true, and it's like it's cool to know it's like you're building a shrine for everybody else. So even though like it's like you guys are always like for giving back so much, I feel like it's because we do have other associations that people pay into, and there's buildings, and you can't go there. Like it's not doing anything for any of us.
Yeah, and we have to have that. We have to have that to where wouldn't it be cool? Now think about this. Wouldn't it be cool if we have a building and it's subbed out for the whole year? That would be a lot of cool shit going on.
Yep.
Have the hurdle, so you have built the WCB basically, with a trailer and what have you. Have the hurdles on trying to get this building started and built, has that been similar to constructing the WCB, or has it been harder?
Well, the people, like you have people such as yourselves, and I ain't gonna lie, Chad. I have ideas, and I have no way to get them done. And then you have Chad Chance, who's like, I'm not gonna say buy into, because I think he believes the same thing as I believe. But Chad has, all of a sudden, Chad starts bringing out his expertise, and he's like, he sees it. And so, like, I said that I wanted to chop. We had a cargo trailer, and we took a a winter off and we chopped it and we turned it into a competition trailer. And that was so stressful because I was like, this might be dumb shit. You know what I mean? Is it viable? Is it something, is it something that we could
You
pull
don't know
off?
if it's going to work yet.
Yeah. And it was pretty funny because like when we put the blower on there, we didn't even know if the blower was going to work. Right?
It's funny.
And so they're messing around with the electricity, trying to get the electricity to work on the blower. We didn't even have the ductwork for the pipe all set up. So we got it up under there and we're trying to get it to work. And they were welding under there and there was a welding helmet right next to the blower. And they get it and it shot the welding helmet out the back door of the shop. And I hugged Larry because I was like, this is cool. This is going to work. Yeah. And he's homophobic as shit. You know what I mean? And I'm hugging him. He's like, get the fuck away from me. You know what I mean? And he's like, and I was so ecstatic that it was going to work. And I'm hugging on him and this and that. And he's like, oh my God, get away from me. But we didn't know any of that stuff was going to work. So it's like that times 10,000 because you're like, we're going to build a building. And then you're like, and Chad, he's like, man, we got to get this stuff on paper because I know it's in your head, Craig, but we got to get it in everybody else's head. We got to get everybody else thinking about it. And it's like, and so you start doing it. And no matter what, everybody can sit here and say, it's going to be a pole barn. It's going to be this. And Chad's like, you have to make it bigger than you ever thought it was going to be because in 3 years, it's going to be too small.
You're going to outgrow it almost. Yeah.
And so we did. And then all of a sudden, we're talking millions of dollars. And I'm like, I'm a podunk.
It's no small.
It's no small deal. And it's like, so can we pull it off? It's yet to be seen. But we're still creeping forward. And so then you go, and while you guys were here, I had to go meet with the architects. And they're like, I'm like, dudes, I don't want to waste your time. Because they're rendering a mock-up. And it's just going to be the basic front of the mock-up. And they're like, this is so cool. And I'm like, and in the back of my head, I'm telling them like, I don't want to be a tire kicker and have this meeting be for nothing and that I was just a dumbass. And they're like, no, you have to. And so it was good to know that it's a process. Like not knowing if you can do it is still part of the process.
Yep.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So you're trying to overcome a hurdle within yourself as well.
Oh my God, it's scary as hell. And I'm 59 and I'm living on the dream that Colonel Sanders of Kentucky Fried Chicken didn't hit his good lick until 69. So I got 11 years to get to there. But like to take your biggest chew off of life at 58 years old, and I've never done anything like this, and I don't even know if it can be done. But a lot of people say it can, and most of the people that say it can are in the WCB, and they believe in it. Like,
and it's also like you have though proven it. You can do it because you've done it before. Each thing is like, doing the cargo trailer was big at that time. It was like it's just different stages of like the biggest just gets a little bit bigger.
Most successful people didn't get there without taking some risk.
Yeah, and I mean, we bought the land at a deal, and when you think about it, there's worse things than like getting it to put together and we can't get it to pay for itself and it gets repossessed. Well, we didn't own the piece of land 3 years ago anyway.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that I want to lose. I'm just saying, but you have to look at failure too. You're like, and I stay away. I like to look at failure because I want to stay the fuck away from it.
Everybody does, but that's one thing I've noticed of being around like very successful business guys. They have no idea what's gonna work. They're throwing darts at the wall.
Yes.
And they throw 100 darts and 2 might stick, and those 2 are gonna pay for the 98 that didn't.
And when you do fail,
just
everybody talks about Trump and like he's a chump and this and that. And he had money, but Trump said it. He goes, man, whenever I lost money and went bankrupt, I could get right back to where I was a lot faster. Yeah. And then the next time I failed, I could get there a lot faster. And like or hate the guy, it's like there's a story from that. And then you hear Andy Frisella saying, he goes, people talk about mistakes. Like a mistake is like wrecking your mom's car. Yep. He goes, but then you get to where my mistakes are, where we fucked off $8 million. Yeah. He's like, that's a big mistake. And he's like, not that. He goes, it really makes you go home and like look at the wall for a while. And you're like, what did I just do? But it's good to know that those guys are like, a mistake is a mistake. A catastrophic mistake is a catastrophic mistake. But like wrecking your mom's car is a mistake, and then having a business so big that you make a mistake that you lost $8 million, and you're like, and so I'm like, and I had like,
but it's still you still can get over it.
yeah, you have to get over it,
Still just gotta.
and it's not going to define you.
No.
And it's like, yeah, it's going to make me mad if I got a giant veterinarian clinic that bought the world championship blacksmith education center
gotta
because I
do to the
defaulted
next
on the loan. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, that might be a little bit of a stick in the crop.
Right next door.
Yeah, right next door.
That'd be a good one. But like, I just, you're not the type of person that's gonna like. There's gonna be bumps in the road, guaranteed. Shit's gonna look bad at times.
Man,
It's gonna be a roller coaster.
all right. So when we were doing the trailer, Bodie and I were doing almost all of the manual labor. Like they were doing a lot of the fabrication, but it was a group deal. But then all of a sudden, it was like we were 116 into it.
Yeah.
And we were doing it all. And we were doing it redneck, bottom of the line, let's get it done.
Yep.
To where like, all right, so we got to stand on an apple crate to get this done. You know what I mean? And then and then my wife is like in tears. I'm in tears because we're like, where are we going to get this money?
Yeah.
And then it's like you get it. And like the first people that made the canvas for us, we're like, hey, we got it. It works out great. We're going to have to make payments. And they're like, silence on the other end of the phone. But we did. We didn't fuck them. But I mean,
Yeah.
but you're like,
Letting you know here.
we're letting you know. We like that 27,000 for this or that is we're making payments, and we made payments on to the welding shop. It was like it just got to be astronomical where you couldn't keep all the sand gathered up in a little pile.
Yeah.
But you also can't afford to stop.
No, you don't, and the reason you don't want to stop
At a
is
certain point in those projects, you're like, we can't weaken now. Like,
no,
we
you
have
can't.
to
And
push
and
through.
would it be weakening if, like, I don't think it's a bad thing. Like, I think we've changed competition because I think people were used to looking at a black and white TV.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you got HD flat screen 55 inch.
Yeah.
And they're like, we don't want to look at a black and white anymore. And so, like, if we were to build, would it be a bad thing if there was another education center built somewhere else? Because they're like, hey, Craig's kind of got an idea on it. Would it be a bad thing for the industry if you had two education centers? And they're like, we're not going to let fucking Craig get away from us.
Yeah, no, and it's funny because like you aren't even gonna look at it as like if there wanted to be another education center, I would see you being open arms of helping somebody else open one because you see the bigger picture of it. Like it goes back to you being like a custodian of the trade.
Oh yeah, and I like telling people my plan, and that is because I like to stomp because I'm a doer. Like I may not be a planner, I may not be a financial planner, but I'm a doer. Like I'm like we're gonna do this, and so it's like there's nothing more satisfying in the whole world. But like we're gonna do this, we're gonna put off these competitions, and then at the time, and I'm not bitter, but it's gonna sound bitter. It's like you give this exact same plan to the AFA, and you're like, this is how we could gather up a lot of people and bring them back to the AFA, and they're like, that's fucking stupid shit, and you're like, well, I'm gonna do it.
Yeah.
And they're like, good luck. And so you're out in exile in the minor leagues, just like Bull Durham, where you're sleeping in your car and you're doing stupid shit, and then all of a sudden it starts to gain, and then they're like, hey, you guys, we've got this great idea. We're gonna have qualifying contests to make the AFT, and you're like, fucking brilliant.
What a concept.
What a concept. But is it bad? No, it's not bad.
No,
it's
not
good
bad.
for everybody.
One hand washes the other hand.
Yes.
But it is like you can't like that's what I think is great about this is like that you're just going on with this education center and that you aren't just like this ship is still rising the whole way. You know what I mean? That like it's one thing after another. It's like because there's one thing of like okay, well I'm sure people that are like doubt the WCB are like, well where's it gonna go from here? Where's it gonna go from here? It's like well I think an education center where people like where it can go in a whole think tank that is always there.
And what I hope is like I think I'm a big part of making the success, right? Yeah. But I think I'm also a big part of a crutch where like I alienate people and I make people mad. And I would hope that we could get the WCB to a point where Craig gets to take a step back and it's not about personalities, it's not about ideology, It's about the actual trade of horseshoeing, and that people who hate me feel like they could come in and they could be, because I think we got a little bit of that going on right now. I think a lot of people come in and I don't think they care for me at all. And I'm all right with that. I am all right with that.
Small house.
Yeah. But man, wouldn't it be great if we could get like employees and people that did this to where people are like, how did this come to be? I think that would be great if we could get to that point where it was like we got glazed over, and that it was like just about that building and about our trade and about what people do for horses.
It's been a lot of great stuff we've talked about so far.
Well, cool.
We're kind of running low on batteries here, and
Running low. Get to practice here soon.
Yeah. The guys are showing up. We're gonna do some more stuff. I think you guys are doing a good thing, and like a lot of people are doing podcasts and stuff like that, and I think you guys getting guys on here and going down rabbit holes is probably nothing but showing how much common ground we all got. I think you guys do a really, really good service to the industry.
well, we appreciate you letting us come down and tear up your shit all week.
It's good. It's good. And I feel like I'm blessed that you guys do come down and tear up my shit.
So do you want anybody to, like, if people are wanting to go to Spruce to watch or anything, is there anything they need to know?
I think that, man, we're on the inside track. I think they're like, they just want people to come and have a good time. It's a very professional run venue. I think Canada has show jumping on TV, on network TV up there. And I think that they have a really, really loyal fan base. And I just think it would be hard for anybody to go and not have a good time. Awesome. Like, there's a little bit for everybody up there.
Yeah, hopefully people come and check it out.
Yeah.
And we're going up there. And so you guys need to stay tuned, because they're going to be doing all kinds of podcasts and a lot of spring offs from the Spruce deal. So it's going to be good. It's only going to get better.
Yeah.
We're looking forward to talking to people that are from across the pond, that time zones are weird. Yeah.
See what it's all about.
It's nothing but good.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks,
Thank
everybody.
you.
Thank you.
Let's talk about the greatest farrier supply house in the world, Wellshot. It's not every day you have a business that's invested in you and wants to do the best they can do for you. The whole crew over at Wellshot are some of the nicest folks you'll meet in this trade. The owner, John Harshbarger, does so much for us in this trade by supporting as much events as he possibly can. I see Wellshot is sponsoring so many events and can't help but think that somebody cares. Every year they host the largest free clinic in the world, put on by the World Championship Blacksmiths, by allowing us all to come and learn and try to become better. Wellshot has everything you could possibly need in your farrier practice. It'd probably take all day to list every product they provide, but whatever brand you use, they'll have it. Aside from products, they also carry all the top tools made by the best in our industry. So when you go to checkout at www.wellshot.com, use code BRAINS and you'll receive a special gift in your order free of charge. Plus, that helps support us at Forging Brains. Can't say enough good things about the folks at Wellshot. It still blows my mind that they can get away with $10 shipping anywhere in the continental U.S. And don't forget, they have basically every anvil that you could possibly need or want to use in supply. So go over there and check them out and use code BRAINS at checkout to help show your support.